It's honestly impressive that you've managed to pay rent, buy groceries, and generally function as a person without knowing why the world's economy had a massive public meltdown not that long ago. Today, I'll explain the 2008 financial crisis to you like you're 5 years old, and by the end of this, you'll be able to confidently explain to your friends why a bunch of grown-ups in suits playing with pretend money almost broke everything for everyone. Alright, let's start with a house. You know what a house is. It has a roof, walls, and a place to put your juice box. Now, most grown-ups can't just buy a house with the money in their pocket. They have to go to a big important building called a bank and ask for a loan. And this loan for a house has a special name: a mortgage. For a very long time, this was a pretty simple deal. You went to the bank, showed them that you had a good job and that you were good at saving your allowance, and they would lend you the money. You would then pay them back a little bit every month for a long time. Simple, right? Well, the bank was happy, you were happy, and everyone had a house. It was a nice, boring system that worked. But then the big important banks got bored. And boring doesn't make you super rich. They wanted to make more money, and they wanted to make it much faster. So, they looked at the old, boring way of doing things and said, "This is slow. We need to speed this up." They had a brilliant, terrible idea. What if, instead of only giving house loans to people who were really good at saving their money, they gave loans to everybody? What if they gave loans to the people who maybe weren't so good at paying things back? Well, these were called subprime mortgages. And subprime is just a fancy word for not very good. Think of it this way. Imagine you have a brand new shiny red bicycle. Your friend, who's very careful, asks to borrow it. You'd probably say yes because, he's going to bring it back in one piece. Now imagine the kid down the street asks to borrow it. This is the kid that you've seen ride his own bike directly into a tree on purpose. And this is the kid who uses rocks as brake pads. Lending your bike to him would be a subprime loan. It's a risky bet. So, why on earth would the banks start lending their shiny red bicycles to all the tree-crashing kids in the neighborhood? Well, it seems like a monumentally stupid thing to do. And it was. But the banks, they had a secret plan. They weren't planning on holding on to these risky loans themselves. Their plan was to get rid of them as fast as possible. They weren't lending their own bicycle. They were lending someone else's and getting paid a fee for arranging the loan. Their only goal was to sign up as many people as possible, get their fee, and then pass the messy loan off to someone else. And this is where things go from a little silly to completely bonkers. The banks started taking thousands and thousands of these loans, and the good ones and the really bad ones, and they bundled them all together. They took a few good loans from careful people, mixed them with a whole bunch of terrible loans from the tree-crashing kids, and mashed them all together into one giant confusing package. They gave this package a super fancy, important-sounding name: a mortgage-backed security. Now, it sounds smart, but it was just a big pile of promises, many of which were not going to be kept. It's like making a giant fruit salad to sell. You have a few perfect, sweet strawberries, and these are the good, safe loans. But you've also got a giant pile of brown, mushy bananas and some weird, fuzzy blueberries that you found at the back of the fridge. These are those bad subprime loans. And instead of throwing the bad fruit out, you just chop it all up and mix it together with the good strawberries. You put it in a nice fancy bowl, stick a sprig of mint on top, and call it a gourmet berry medley. You don't mention the fuzzy berries, you're just talking about how delicious the strawberries are. Now, who would buy a fruit salad that's secretly full of rotten fruit? Well, the banks had a plan for that too. They took their fruit salads to special companies called rating agencies. Now, the job of a rating agency is to be a taste tester. They're supposed to inspect the product and tell everyone if it's safe to eat. They give it a grade, like an A or a B or an F. But here's the problem. The banks who were making the fruit salads were also the ones paying the taste testers. So the taste testers didn't look too closely. They took a tiny nibble of a strawberry, ignored the giant brown mushy part, and said, "Wow, this is delicious. This is the best fruit salad I've ever tasted." Then they slap a big AAA sticker on it, which is the best grade you can possibly get. It's like a gold star, a trophy, and a pizza party all at once. So now you have thousands of these disgusting fruit salads, all with gold stars on them. Everyone wanted to buy them. Other banks, big companies, investment funds from all over the world. They all lined up to buy these gourmet berry medleys, thinking they were getting a safe, top-quality product. They had no idea they were buying a big bowl of future tummy aches, and the banks who made the bundles made billions of dollars selling them. Everyone was getting very rich off these piles of mostly yucky loans. And this whole time, house prices were going up and up and up. It seemed like magic, because the banks were giving loans to anyone with a pulse. Tons of people were buying houses, and when lots of people want to buy something, the price goes up. It created a big, happy bubble where it felt like the party would never end. But some people were looking at this whole situation and thinking, this seems wrong. A fruit salad made of mostly rotten fruit can't possibly be worth a gold star. And these people were clever. They figured out a way to make money from how stupid everyone else was being. They invented something called a credit default swap. And this is another fancy name for something pretty simple. It's basically insurance, but with a twist. It was a bet. These clever people went to big insurance companies and said, we want to buy insurance on those fruit salads. We're willing to bet that they are going to go bad and make a lot of people sick. Now this is like watching your friend, who always spills everything, carry a giant glass of juice across a slippery white carpet. You can't necessarily stop him, but you can go to another friend and say, I'll pay you $5 right now. If he spills the juice, you have to pay me $50. You're betting on the disaster. You don't own the juice, but you don't own the carpet. But you do stand to make a lot of money if things go horribly wrong. And that is a credit default swap. People were buying insurance on things that they didn't even own, just because they were sure that the whole system was going to break. And the insurance companies, thinking that the party would never end, happily took these bets. They got billions of dollars in easy money, thinking that they'd never have to pay out. And then, the music stopped. House prices couldn't go up forever. Eventually, they flattened out, and then they started to fall. All those people with the subprime loans, the silly loans, suddenly found that their monthly payments were getting bigger. And since their houses were now worth less than they paid for them, they couldn't just sell the house to pay off the loan. So, they did the only thing they could do. They stopped paying. They defaulted. They just walked away from the houses and the loans. One by one, the tree-crashing kids started leaving the shiny red bicycles in ditches all over town. All at once, everyone realized that the gourmet berry medleys were not in fact full of delicious strawberries. They were almost entirely made of fuzzy blueberries and brown, mushy bananas. They were worthless. The gold stars meant nothing. The value of these things that everyone had paid billions for dropped to zero, almost overnight. And this created a giant chain reaction of panic. All the banks and investors holding these worthless fruit salads had lost all their money, and the insurance companies who had taken all those bets, well, the ones who had bet the juice would never spill, well, the juice was now all over the white carpet. A tidal wave of juice. They owed trillions of dollars to the people who had bet against the system. But the problem was, they didn't have the money. Not even close. They had promised to pay out $50 on 10,000 spills, but they only had $100 in their pocket. One of the biggest banks, Lehman Brothers, which had been around for over 100 years, simply collapsed. It went bankrupt. It was as if one of the biggest, strongest trees in the forest simply vanished. All other banks, who were all connected to each other like a big web, started to panic. Bank A owned money to Bank B, which owed money to Bank C, which had all of its money invested in worthless fruit salads from Bank A. Nobody knew who was safe. Nobody trusted anyone. The entire global financial system, the thing that moves money around for businesses and people, just froze solid. Banks wouldn't even lend money to other banks. The world's economic heart simply stopped beating. And this is when the ultimate grown-ups had to step in, the government. They looked at this colossal mess and realized that if they let all the big banks fail, it would be like a row of giant dominoes falling. The crash would take down everything with it, from the biggest companies to the smallest local shops. People's life savings would disappear. The whole world would plunge into a depression. So, they did something that made a lot of people very angry. They gave the banks hundreds of billions of dollars. It was called a bailout. It was like the kids who ate all the candy, ignored all the warnings, got a massive tummy ache, and then just got rewarded with even more candy to make them feel better. It felt incredibly unfair to everyone who had played by the rules. But the government's logic was that if they didn't give the banks the medicine money, the sickness would spread and destroy the entire economy for everyone. It was a choice between a very bad option and a catastrophically worse one. And the fallout was huge. Millions of people lost their homes, millions more lost their jobs, and the world entered a deep recession that took years to recover from. And it all happened because a group of very clever people forgot a lesson that every 5-year-old knows. You can't build a strong tower out of wobbly blocks, and you can't make a good fruit salad out of rotten fruit. So, what did we learn? A bunch of banks made yucky loan smoothies, told everyone they were delicious, and sold them. Then other people bet that the smoothies would go bad, and the smoothies did go bad, and everyone who ate them got sick. Then the grown-ups had to give them medicine money so they wouldn't break the whole economy. See, you totally get it now. It wasn't some complicated mystery. It was really just a chain reaction of silly decisions made by people who should have known better. So go on, you're basically an economist now. Or at least you can sound like one at your next dinner party. You're welcome.